Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's stream. News summary from Moscow program. I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and well, I can say we are, I think, a step closer to final showdown in this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. Although, before I go through some details, dear friends, let me thank not Sam Shovel. That's the nickname of our new member on Patreon. Thank you very much for joining our Patreon community and for your support. And also, dear friends, I was forgetting to mention that for the last several days, for entire week, I believe, I was putting links to the news that I'm using during the updates in a description box. So in case you want to read the whole news, you can check description box and find the exact news that you are interested in and just click the link and you will go to the page. If you are from the Western countries, it is highly likely that Russian media outlets might be blocked in your country, so use VPN. But anyways, I think this is a good addition, I will say, because there might be a situation when you want to read some more about news. I'm not reading entire articles, isn't it? I just have no time for that. Just some key points. But in case you want to read all of it, you can use those links that are in description box under my videos. That's been said, dear friends. Once again, thank you all for your attention, for joining this stream. As always, after news segment, I will join community chat for a little while. If you have a question or comment that you want me to react on it, please use capital letters or a super chat or round feature as it called there on Rumble, and I would not miss it for sure. And I will try my best to be as informative as I can while responding. And if you want to support my work in general, under the videos in description box, there are all the links to support platforms. So check that if you plan to support. That's been said, dear friends. Let's go through some news now. And as I said, there are a lot of developments, a lot of news to unpack. But first, I will start with this report from RIA Novosti that Ukrainian armed forces attempted to attack Kursk nuclear power plant, second nuclear power plant that is still under construction. And I can give you some details on this yet another act of nuclear terrorism on part of NATO and NATO proxy Kiev regime. Ukrainian drones attempted to attack the Kursk nuclear power plant in Kurchatov. This is a city, of course, in the Kursk region. According to regional governor Alexander Hinstein, we have quote, as a result of the crash, the drone hit one of the buildings on the site of their station under construction. The building was damaged by shrapnel, but there is no risk of fire, he wrote on a Telegram channel of his. There were no casualties. The nuclear power plant continues to operate normally and the radiation levels are in a norm. But yet again, I think, of course, news is important because we are talking about nuclear terrorism on part of NATO member states and their proxy Kiev regime. And as I said quite a few times before, only so many times whole of Europe and one might say whole of the world may be that lucky that these constant attacks on Russian nuclear power plants did not yet cause nuclear disaster. If these attacks continue, something extremely dangerous might actually occur. So definitely topic is one of those that definitely deserves our attention. Other news that I want to share with you is coming from Vzгляд newspaper. So Ukrainian armed forces losses in their attack on the training ground in the Chernigov region have risen to 300. As a result of Russian military strike on military training ground in Chernigov region, the number of casualties among Ukrainian armed forces reached 300 and several hangars containing equipment were destroyed. Russian security agencies reported. There are many Telegram channels were talking about this attack that happened yesterday, I believe. But I was waiting for some video confirmations of that, or official media confirmations. And today I see this report, so I'm sharing with you this report. One strike, 300 casualties on side of hostile forces, and they lost also a significant number of equipment. Unfortunately, when it comes to military operations, on a special military operation, number of bigger Telegram channels in Russian segment reported today that one of Russian Su-34 frontline bombers were intercepted by air defense systems of their enemy. Defense Ministry did not yet confirm this information, but I saw reports on some big channels, and I guess, unfortunately, this report is correct. In the Western propaganda outlets, there was a whole celebration about interception of Russian plane, because, the Kiev regime, their proxy is losing, right? Kiev regime is losing, NATO is losing this fight. They are desperate, and they are using any reason to create some waves and waves of celebrations. That's what sick people do, basically, right? And Western elites and their propaganda outlets, their propagandists are mentally ill elements for sure, right? But anyways, let me continue with some other news. Dear friends, I give you this report that I mentioned this morning. About reaction of French President Macron on the calls from US President Trump to basically open fire on Russian planes if European NATO countries think those planes are violating their borders. And as a part of deception operation, French President Macron went to say that Paris is against such measures. This is all a false part of deception, dear friends. I'm quite sure about it, and I will explain later on what I mean. But nevertheless, report is that aimed unsubstantiated accusations against Russia of allegedly violating NATO space. French President Emmanuel Macron stated that alliance countermeasures should not be, direct fire. According to Macron, Russia is testing NATO countries, and the response should be restrained. But yet again, I think this is a false continuation of the false flag operations that we see from NATO member states, from Poland, from Estonia, Romania, even Norway get involved in this crap stuff. Denmark is currently actively working on the false flag operations for the last several days. They are trying hard to blame Russia for whatever destructions they are experiencing, but I guess people not really are believing in this crap. But yes, that's what Macron says anyways, at least in the public, that at least for now, NATO's response should be cautious one, although other leaders among NATO member states are calling for fire to be opened on Russian planes, and therefore Russian ambassador in France stated that if NATO shuts down Russian planes, it will be war. Straight and clear. Russian ambassador to France, Alexei Mishkov, stated that if NATO were to shut down Russian aircraft allegedly violating their airspace of alliance members, that would mean a war. Also another quote here: "It will be war. What else is possible?" Mishkov said on RTL radio, answering the question about Russia's possible reaction. Quite a few planes violate our airspace, whether accidentally or not. No one shoots them down, the ambassador also added. Meshkov stated that Europe has provided nothing tangible to prove Russia's involvement in either drone incidents in Europe or in any other, in regards to any other this false flag operation of NATO, basically. Firstly, we are not playing games with anyone. Secondly, after the West has deceived us so many times. We only believe in facts. Mishko stated, well, rational answer from Russian diplomat there, and they're quite straightforward, isn't it? You shut down our planes, that means war. That's it, right? Meanwhile, as I already said, dear friends, there is another false flag operation in workings right now in Europe, in Denmark to be precise. And for the last couple of days, Western propaganda is pushing some stories which that some drones are circulating around some airports, around some military bases, and so on. Although Danish embassy commented on the situation and stated that they have no factual evidences to blame Russia for this. Right? Let me give you some details. The incidents involving disruptions to airport operations in Denmark are a staged provocation, and the Russian side categorically rejects any absurd speculations about its involvement. The Russian embassy in Copenhagen stated, "It is clear that the incidents involved the recorded disruptions at the Danish airports are staged provocation. It will undoubtedly be used as a pretext for further escalation of tensions in the interests of forces seeking by all means to prolong the Ukrainian conflict as much as possible and expand it to other countries." The Russian side categorically rejects any absurd speculations about its involvement in this incident. Embassy said in a statement on its Telegram channel, but nevertheless, hysteria in Western propaganda means continue from Western so-called elites. Let me give you, for example, this report here that mystery drones spotted near the Danish airbase hosting F-35 jets. Denmark briefly shut down air traffic at the Aalborg airport on Wednesday after unidentified drones were spotted hovering near their runway. The latest in a string of unexpected sites that also include their facility that hosts the Danish fleet of F-16s and F-35 fighter jets. Northern Julian police said more than one drone was seen circling Aalborg with lights on around 9:44 p.m. local time on Wednesday. Authorities later reported that drones were also observed near airport in Esbjerg, Sanderborg, and Skratstrap, home to Denmark's fleet of F-16s and their newly arrived F-35s. Despite hours of monitoring and assisting from the Danish armed forces, the alleged unmanned aircraft remained unidentified. Officials could not say what type of drones they were, who launched them, and why. It is too early to say what the goal of the drones is and who is the actor behind. A police official told the reporters, adding that they would try to bring them down if possible. Eventually, the drones vanished without being intercepted. Incident comes just days after Copenhagen airport, their busiest in the Nordic region, was forced to hold flights for 4 hours due to similar sightings. Right? And yet again, dear friends, even though they're officially Danish so-called leadership is not blaming Russia, speculations on the media is already there, and you guess which side they are blaming. Of course, Russia, and therefore, statement of Russian embassy is important. Russian side clearly highlighted that this is, words were different that embassy used, but what they meant is this is a false flag operation of the hostile forces, right, that want prolongation of this proxy war against Russia that West is waging, and potentially even inclusion of some other countries in direct open hostilities, which is true, by the way. I said many times before, we are about to witness next phase of escalation from the collective West against Russia, and preparations, including false flag operations only increasing, literally on daily basis, right? And also interesting report, I think, from RT that there was a massive blast that rocked a town in southern West England. An explosion at their industrial estate in southern West England has triggered a major emergency response overnight, with the multiple fire crews battling the large blaze. The blaster at the Groundwell industrial estate in Swindon, a town where construction of a major drone factory is planned, occurred shortly after 7:30 local time on Wednesday in a building used by printing company. The BBC confirmed. Witnesses said that explosions shook homes across their town. The fire prompted the evacuation of their estate and the closure of several nearby roads. And you guessed who's going to be blamed for this incident in that industrial area? Of course, they're going to blame Russia for that too. No doubts about that. Let's see what kind of evidences they will provide, if any, whatsoever. But as I said, this is all preparations, by the way. This is all preparations for the next phase of escalation that I think is absolutely inevitable at this point. Seems like globalists and their allies, neocons and their others, and the regimes that they control over the collective West are in their final preparations before launching this offensive. And we already have not just some indirect evidences of that, but one might argue even direct indicators. And for example, Wall Street Journal, in one of its articles, claims that Trump received information about planned offensive by Ukrainian armed forces. Right, let me give you some details on that. US President Donald Trump received information from his inner circle about an allegedly planned offensive by Ukrainian armed forces, the Wall Street Journal reports. According to sources, the American leader was informed, among other things, of a planning Ukrainian offensive that would require intelligence support from the United States. And this is happening, by the way. This report is coming like day after Trump posted infamous statements on his Truth Social, when he basically called Russia a paper tiger, mocked Russian economy, insulted Russia basically once again, as he have done already on several occasions, and also when he called openly to NATO, European countries and their proxy regime to go on with their offensive. You remember Trump actually said that, well, it is possible that Kyiv regime can reclaim all the territories that they had after Soviet Union collapsed, right? So this was a direct, basically, hint that something is in plans, right? Something in the works, and this something is going to be big, very big, right? And I have said many times, dear friends, before, that all the indicators that I see from open sources, I clearly see connections between different events. And if my experience in journalism means nothing or means anything, then if it means nothing, okay, maybe I don't know nothing, right? But if my experience, 3 decades plus experience in journalism means anything, then it well might be that my reading of the big picture is correct, and the collective West is about to launch unprecedented scale of attack on Russia, which will include simultaneous operations with terrorist attacks, large-scale terrorist attacks inside the Russian Federation with their assets of the Western secret services. And unfortunately, I'm afraid they do have some assets on Russian territory. Same time, West will go ahead with their massive cyber attacks on Russian Federation, unprecedented scale cyber attacks, also massive drone and missile strikes. And to launch those missiles, European countries are using these false flag operations in Poland and elsewhere to bring more planes closer to Kiev controlled territory, right? So that they will participate in the launches, and then West will say that it was a Kiev regime. West will have nothing to do with it. It would not work, but nevertheless, that's what their plan is. And also, I'm quite sure Western so-called elite is going to try to conduct a decapitation strike on Russian political and military leadership. And on this point, by the way, their proxy, their puppet Zelensky, already made some statements. He threatened, literally, openly, directly threatened Russian political leadership, for example, with their elimination. He did it publicly, right? And former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, responded on this threat. Of course, Zelensky is nobody, right? Zelensky is the talking head of the globalists. So it's globalists, basically. It's Western so-called elites that are threatening openly with their execution Russian leadership. That's what Zelensky's statement actually means, isn't it? Because who the hell is Zelensky, by the way? He is just freaking nobody, right? It's his masters that are actually operating with the forces and with the means to launch decapitation, to launch a decapitation strike on Russia. Attempt at least, right? And Medvedev responded on that, and well, let me give you some details about it. So, Deputy Chairman of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, reminded the head of the Kiev regime, Vladimir Zelensky, that Russia possesses weapons from which no bomb shelters can protect. And Zelensky basically was threatening, or through Zelensky, globalists or Western elites were threatening Russian leaderships that they know where bomb shelters are, and they might need it, those bomb shelters soon, right? And that's why Medvedev is responding in this way, that Vladimir Zelensky and that is Western elites should know that Russia possesses weapons from which no bomb shelter can protect. The deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council commented on the words of Vladimir Zelensky, who in an interview with the American portal Axios called on Russian officials to ensure they know the locations of their hideouts. They need to know where their bomb shelters are. If they don't stop the war, they'll need them, Zelensky stated. And Medvedev responded by saying that Zelensky should remember something else. Russia could use weapons that bomb shelters would not protect against. And the Americans should remember that too. And this is important. This is important, by the way, I think, because I cannot know, of course, a level of communication, actual communication between Medvedev and the president of Russian Federation, Putin. But it well might be that Medvedev is sending message, direct warning to Washington and to collective West in general, that is coming not just from him personally, but maybe this message was talked with Putin too. And message is clear that Zelensky and everyone else, basically, including in Washington, should know that if it comes to it, then Russia has means to retaliate, and there are means that you cannot hide from, even in bunkers, right? So this is hint on nuclear weapons, obviously, and maybe on Oreshniks, because if you keep in mind the kinetic energy that those Oreshnik warheads have while entering their atmosphere from space with their hypersonic speed, then it is highly likely that they'll be able to penetrate even deepest bunkers in this world. In any ways, this is definitely strong warning. I have shared this warning of the Medvedev on my Telegram and Twitter X pages, and I don't know. Will West listen to Russian side or not? Most likely, they will not listen to Russian side, and they will continue their preparations for final assault on Russia. I guess that's how they see this next phase of escalation, and maybe because of this potential next level of escalation between NATO and Russia, Pentagon chief is urgently calling hundreds of generals and admirals. I will say this is sort of a breaking news too. Let me give you some details. So Pentagon Security Secretary Pat Hexed ordered an urgent meeting of hundreds of senior U.S. military officials in Virginia, the Washington Post reports, citing sources. According to the publication, the order applies to almost all officers of the rank of a brigadier general and above, including commanders in the conflict zones around the world. People are very worried. They don't understand what this means. One of their newspaper, excuse me, sources said. Another source noted that even commanders located abroad are required to attend the meeting in person. This is not usually done. He emphasized the meeting will take place next Tuesday at the Marine Corps base in Quantico, near Washington. Pentagon spokesman Sina Parnell declined their declined to disclose their agenda of this meeting. And this is a big deal, by the way. I don't remember any other time when all U.S. High-ranking officers were called in, literally all of them, or practically all of them, including from abroad. And this means they're going to discuss some stuff that is so secret at this point that they cannot send the messages, even through Pentagon's means, right? So they will discuss certain topics in person. And now you tell me, dear friends, what they're going to discuss. What they're going to discuss. Maybe actions or steps of Washington during this next phase of escalation that West will launch against Russia in upcoming days or weeks. In short, basically, maybe that's the reason that all those generals and admirals being called in. I don't think this level of meeting will be called for for Venezuela, for example. I really don't. Of course, Venezuela is a big deal, and U.S. is about to launch an attack on Venezuela. But I don't think Pentagon will call all its generals and admirals for a meeting just for to discuss operation against Venezuelan leadership or Venezuela. So they're going to discuss something much bigger, and this, in my personal opinion, this something can be potential steps that Washington will take, Washington, Pentagon, and their other institutions, White House, Pentagon, and others will take during next phase of escalation that West will launch against Russia, and in the process and afterwards, potentially. You tell me what is your take, dear friends. Maybe I'm missing something there, but that's my interpretation of this news. Meanwhile, Trump had a meeting today with the president of Turkey. They discussed a couple of topics. Trump congratulated Erdogan with a successful, as he said, coup d'etat in Syria, successful regime change. Also, Trump stated that he spoke with, or he intends to talk to Erdogan about F-35 planes, and that means Washington will most likely once again demand from Turkey to get rid of Russian S-400 air defense systems. But then during their conversation with the media in Oval Office, Trump went to say that he's not going to use no more language like paper tiger and stuff. But then immediately went to claim that Russia gained virtually no land during the special military operation. I really struggle to understand how poorly informed Trump actually is. Sometimes it seems like he literally has no freaking idea about anything that he's talking about, and definitely he's extremely poorly informed about special military operation and the situation on the ground there. But nevertheless, let me give you some short video, dear friends, of statements of Trump, and you share your take on that.
With all of the heavy bombardment over the last 2 weeks, they've gained almost no land. Think of that. They've gained almost no land. And I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, ammunition, and lives, their lives. And they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop. I really do.
So that's what Trump says himself, by the way. I mean, there's nothing to add there. He probably was briefed that well, Russia didn't gain control over there any territories whatsoever. Okay, but in reality, what happened is that well, according to Russian Defense Ministry, by the way, in 2025 alone, and this year is not finished yet, right? Russian forces liberated 4,740 square kilometers of the territory from the enemy forces. Right? Russian troops have captured 205 settlements. I would not use word captured. I will use this is technical translation, by the way, mechanical translation from Google. Right, so therefore I will say differently. Russian troops have liberated 205 settlements in a northern military district of the zone of special military operation. The Ministry of Defense reported units of the Russian Armed Forces troops groups through decisive actions between January 1st and September 25 liberated more than 4,740 square kilometers. Report stated the following comes under the control of their army. In a DPR, 3,308 square kilometers were liberated. In a LPR, more than 205 square kilometers in Zaporozhye region. And LPR is practically completely liberated, by the way. There is only some DRGs of Kiev regime that running around there, but no settlements are under their control. In Zaporozhye region, Russian armed forces liberated 261 square kilometers. In the Kharkov region, more than 542 kilometers. In the Sumy region, over 223 square kilometers. In Dnipropetrovsk region, more than 175 square kilometers. As the chief of the general staff of the Russian armed forces, Valery Gerasimov, reported in late August, troops controlled 99.7% of LPR, 79% of their DPR, 74% of the Zaporozhye region, and 76% of Kherson region. According to him, the army continues to its relentless offensive along virtually the entire line of contact. So someone should give this information to Donald Trump, because after all, he's at least formally president of United States, and he should know better. And maybe if someone will give him this information, he will never ever say nonsense like Russian troops just are bombing, launching drones and missiles, but have not moving forward and not liberating nothing. And this is just 2025, by the way. I'm quite sure before this year will end, these numbers will be much higher. These numbers will be much higher. But nevertheless, let's continue on a major topic that is upcoming, in my personal opinion, unprecedented scale of escalation that West gonna launch against Russia. And on one side, we have direct, I will say, indicators that large-scale escalation is coming. But on the other hand, we have also massive deception operation on part of collective West. And well, when they are engaged on the highest possible level in a deception operation, we know what is coming next. We see that 3 months ago with Iran, isn't it? And let me explain what I mean by deception. You know, dear friends, that last few days significantly, I mean, he made a U-turn, right? And began claiming that, well, Kyiv regime, with assistance of NATO and Europe, well capable of reclaiming all the territories that have been liberated by Russia and even go beyond, right? He was calling for actions. And very same time, almost immediately, Collective West began conducting deception operation. And for example, different propaganda outlets in the Western, so-called media outlets, began pushing this narrative that, well, Europe is fears that Trump is basically washing its hands of Ukraine and leaving Europe alone to deal with this situation. Although in his statements, Trump was very clear that Europe and the NATO, with Europe's and NATO's assistance, Kyiv regime might not just reclaim the territories, but go even beyond. And what is the NATO? Last time I checked, US was a main force in the NATO. And today Trump was talking to second strongest military in NATO, with the president of the country with the second strongest military in NATO, with the president of Turkey. And we don't know what they actually discussed behind the closed doors, right? So Trump was talking about NATO, not some separate European countries. But anyways, there is a hard push now by Western media to create this false narrative that Trump is washing hands, US is washing hands from Ukrainian crisis, from this proxy war, and leaving Europe to deal with the situation. For example, the Financial Times, yesterday I reported that Telegraph, isn't it? That was Telegraph, British media outlet, come up with such claims that Trump is washing hands. Today, Financial Times is making similar claims. European countries fear that US President Donald Trump will blame them for Kyiv's military failures. The Financial Times reported. The newspaper noted that Trump has spent months trying to force Ukraine to recognize their territories it has lost to Russia. However, Trump recently changed his rhetoric. In a post on his Truth Social page, he wrote that Kyiv was allegedly in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form with the support of the EU, with the support of NATO. That's what Trump is talking about, and Trump was very clear that NATO can buy any volume of weapons from US, right, and use it in any way, shape, or form that they will like, right? So it's not just the EU, by the way. Clearly, they are lying to us, right? Several European officials have speculated that Trump intends to shift responsibility for Ukraine defense to Europe. According to German officials who spoke with the Financial Times, the US leader has set their bar very high. Another source believes that Trump is preparing an exit strategy so that he can blame Europe for failure if it's necessary. According to newspaper sources, EU leaders have concluded that Trump is no longer a reliable ally. At the same time, Trump's position were received positively in a number of cabinets, the newspaper pointed out. And by the way, it's not just so-called media outlets and some sources, but Polish Prime Minister went on to publicly basically lashed out at Trump, which is something that you don't see that often, isn't it? And without permission from his Anglo-Saxon masters, Polish Prime Minister will never ever dare to bark at Trump. We all understand that, isn't it? And if this is not an indicator that we are dealing with a deception operation on part of Collective West, then I don't know what that is then, right? Let me give you some details on claims that Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk made. He wrote on his page on social media, President Trump stated that Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, could reclaim its entire territory. Behind this surprising optimism lies a promise of reducing US involvement and the shift of responsibility for ending the war to Europe. Better true than illusions, Donald Tusk stated. And yet again, dear friends, we are talking about puppet of the Anglo-Saxon elites, right? That's what Donald Tusk is, man, and the entire Polish elites for that matter. And without permission from his puppeteers, no way Tusk will say a single word against Trump ever. We all understand that. So clearly there is a deception operation in place, and the task of this deception operation is simple: to cut off guard Russian Federation, to create the illusion that there is some divisions inside the NATO. Some groups are pushing for this narrative, some for another, while in reality all they do is finalizing preparations for a massive attack, unprecedented scale attack on Russian Federation. And I already spoke about that attack, what it might look like. Attempt of a decapitation of the Russian political and military leadership, large-scale drone and missile strikes, and this is happening simultaneously, large-scale terrorist attacks inside the Russian territory, all sorts of sabotage operations with the involvement of assets that unfortunately West most likely has on Russian territory, and there are also unprecedented scale of cyber attacks to somehow shake the situation inside Russia. And there may be, their hope of the Western elites, that they're going to crumble the system here in Russia and create some chaotic situation and achieve their strategical goal this way. And their goal is to achieve strategical defeat of Russia, right? They have said it openly many times. So that's what they do, by the way. They are, on one side, they are clearly pushing for this next phase of escalation. On the other side, they are operating with the deception operations and are trying to cut off guard the Russian Federation. Hopefully, Moscow knows better, right? Hopefully, Russian leadership knows better, and we would not be cut off guard, as Iran was just a couple of months ago. We will see. Meanwhile, as I already said, by the way, Trump was very clear that NATO can take as much weapons as US can provide, right? And then use it against Russia in any way, shape, or form they would like it. And well, I have a video, short clip of Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, who spoke about it, right? And let's listen what he has to say about that. So
going to the proper channels to get to the battlefield. Final thought, Mr. Secretary?
Absolutely. And this is what happened mid-July when President Trump called me and he said, hey, Mark, we will open the floodgates again of U.S. weapons, both lethal and non-lethal, into Ukraine. But guess what? Allies will pay for it. And I said, you are totally right. Already $2 billion have been committed in packages for Ukraine. The other packages are now pending. So you will see a constant flow of American weapons into Ukraine, paid for by allies. And I think in conjunction with the sanctions, in conjunction with the 5% target, what we will overall spend as NATO on our collective defense, this big foreign policy success of President Trump at the The Hague summit of NATO in June, this collectively puts the pressure on Russia to get serious and stop doing this.
So Rutte is quite clear there, isn't it? They're going to flood. They're going to flood their proxy regime with their American weapons, right? So what these propaganda outlets and their Polish prime minister is talking about then? Do they really expect that US will openly declare war on Russia and send its troops to fight Russia? No, they did not expect that, right? So it's a deception. On one side, West is preparing this massive escalation with the Russian Federation, and on the other hand, they are engaged in deception through with number of directions. They are weaponizing diplomacy, of course, as a part of a deception. And my hope is that we would not fail for it. My hope is that Moscow would not fail for this deception, because it's, I mean, as dangerous as it can get, right? And we have some hints that Moscow knows what is going on. We have some hints that Moscow knows what's going on, and I give you some news on that too in a minute, dear friends. But before I continue, let me just highlight that, as you know, this project only exists as long as I have your support, dear friends, community support. And if you like my work, if you think I'm bringing something interesting to the table in this field of news and political commentary in alternative media, please consider to support. You can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal platform or Boosty platform. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty that I have. And as I said yesterday, we had one new member on the Patreon, and I'm grateful for not some shovel. That's a nickname for joining community there. Links are, of course, under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And during the streams, you can use super chat. By the way, super chat on Rumble or Rant, as it called there, to highlight any question or comment, or to basically donate to this project. Okay, that's been said, dear friends. That's been said. I can see 85 members of our community are online right now. Whole this week, I was launching this evening updates on at 10 o'clock in the evening, and unfortunately, we very rarely reached 100 plus members online. Maybe from next week, I have to change timing. Maybe 11 p.m. Moscow time will do better. I don't know. But anyways, hopefully one day we will have more members online on Rumble than on YouTube, if it's even possible. But anyways, let me continue with the news, dear friends. And well, Rute again, who basically went to mock foreign minister of Russian Federation publicly, which is very unfortunate. But this attitude of Reuter clearly demonstrates a place where Western elites are. They think they can do anything with impunity. They are emboldened, seems like, or at least maybe they are good actors, and they're pretending that they are on the top of the game or something like that. But this attitude is extremely dangerous, by the way, because you should expect, or one can expect anything from elements like that. I'm going to give you yet another short clip, dear friends, from statements of Reuter, and you share your take, what you think about it.
He is foreign minister of Russia, I think, since the birth of Jesus Christ. And since then, anything useful came out of his mouth. So let's not pay too much attention to Mr. Lavrov.
So I don't know what to say on this crazy stuff that coming from Rute. But what I do know is that Lavrov clearly understands what is going on. Lavrov foreign minister of Russian Federation, clearly understands what is going on. And today he was giving a speech in UN, on the General Assembly of United Nations. And let's listen to a short clip from a statement of Lavrov. It's important. Let's listen to this.
Of principles enshrined in the UN Charter, taken in full, comprehensively, with due regard how they're interrelated, is a way of laying the groundwork for the progressive development of all states without exception, large and small. Refusing to comply with the Charter's principles is an expression of neocolonial ambitions, leading to the rise of global instability, multiplication of regional conflicts. A key example of this is the Ukraine crisis, which was provoked by the collective West. And we also, of course, know the history of colonialism in Africa, where borders were drawn up arbitrarily without any concern for nationality or confession. And back to Ukraine, NATO and the EU have basically declared war on my country and are partaking it directly.
So in the end there, Lavrov said it openly, isn't it, that war has been declared on Russia. And I mean, let's listen.
My country and are partaking it directly.
Let's listen to it, this final
and
part.
Back to Ukraine, NATO and the EU have basically declared war on my country and are partaking it directly.
NATO and EU have declared the war on Russia and they are taking part in this war directly. That's what Lavrov said. So Moscow understands very well, I can assume, what is going on, and hopefully we are preparing, by the way. Hopefully we are preparing with all means necessary in all possible ways, right, to do what is necessary when time comes. And I'm afraid that time is already here. That time is already here. I cannot know for sure when exactly Collective West is going to go ahead with this next phase of escalation that they are preparing, but I think it will happen before end of this year. It might happen today, tomorrow, in a couple of weeks' time, but this next phase of escalation seems, for now at least, inevitable. And we know what is going on. We know what is going on, and we are also preparing. And our allies too. And for example, today, President of Belarus, Lukashenko, stated that Oreshnik missile systems are already on the way to Belarus, and who knows, maybe they are not just on the way, but some of the Oreshnik missile systems are stationed in Belarus. Well, might be the case too, and members of our community are familiar with what Oreshnik system is capable of. There is no air defense systems in this world that can intercept delivery weak warheads, basically, of Oreshnik, right? Let me continue with some other news, dear friends, because all of a lot is happening also, of course, in this world. And today, for example, another leader of Georgian Dream Party, which is a ruling party in Georgia, former Soviet Republic, and former player of Milan, football player in Milan, Galadze, friends of ours from Italy are most likely familiar with this person, made quite interesting remarks in regards to Zelensky, who criticized Georgia for not opening a second front against Russia and not sacrificing the people of Georgia. Let me give you what Galadze has to say. So Zelensky should mind his own collapsing country instead of lecturing Georgia, said Galadze, Secretary General of the ruling party, Georgian Dream. There is no greater tragedy than what is happening in Ukraine today with his involvement of Zelensky. Their time will come and he will have to answer for it, Kaladze stated. His remarks followed Zelensky's speech at the UN General Assembly, where he claimed that Europe is losing Georgia, and Zelensky said also some other crap about Georgia, and the number of leaders from the Southern Caucasus Republic responded on these statements of Zelensky with a quite tough response. Meanwhile, RIA Novosti is reporting that another Soviet republic, Moldova, seems like a regime there is preparing territory that they control, and also themselves to sacrifice people of Moldova for geopolitical agenda of the West. A couple of days ago, Russian Foreign Intelligence Service reported that Western-controlled regime in Moldova is planning all sorts of provocations during the upcoming parliamentary elections, and NATO itself is considering to launch its troops into Moldova in case they would think that there is a risk that opposition in Moldova are gonna gain control over the country, right? And today reports were coming in that Moldovan Ministry of Defense has sent summons massively to citizens of the country, right? And eventually, later on, Defense Ministry was forced to explain why they did it. Let me give you some details on that. So, Moldovan Ministry of Defense was forced to explain reports of mass summons to a military registration and their enlistment offices, linking them to a parliamentary elections campaign scheduled for September 28. Earlier on Thursday, several Moldavian Telegram channels reported that Moldavian residents were receiving summons. Their summonses stated their purpose of appearing at the military registration and their enlistment office was there to clarify the military situation. The Ministry of Defense claims it did not send any summons to citizens and that all this information is false. Their goal is clear: to sow panic, undermine trust in state institutions, and manipulate public opinion in the context of their ongoing electoral process. Reads the statement published on Ministry of Defense Telegram channel. And by the way, that's the explanation. That's what they said. That they didn't send nothing. Okay, people are receiving summons. They are going to enlistment offices, some of them at least, that did not ignore these summons. And eventually, Defense Ministry is coming out and saying that, well, we have nothing to do with it. Then who is sending those summons, bother? Aliens? So clearly, we should pay attention to developments in Moldova, because soon this republic may become another hotspot on the European map. Just in a couple of days, even, maybe. A few more news difference for this news segment. Interesting decision was made by Slovenian leadership, because this country becomes the first EU member to officially ban Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu from entry, declaring him a persona non grata. And well, who knows? Maybe some other European countries gonna follow this decision. Hard to tell, but report itself is clearly interesting one, isn't it? Of course, this decision not going to stop neither Netanyahu, neither his affiliates to continue crimes against humanity that they are engaged in. But nevertheless, at least we have more and more indicators that Netanyahu's regime is becoming more and more isolated. And eventually this growing pressure might actually resort into ending of the hostilities in Palestine, against Palestine, that Israel is engaged in. Maybe. But yet again, if you ask me, I think if modern Israel is not demilitarized and denazified, I don't think there is a realistic chances that this entity, Israel, will stop genociding people left and right. That's my personal take. And as I said, by the way, Israel continues to kill people on daily basis in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, in Syria, in Lebanon, and also in Yemen. And today reports were coming in that Israeli forces launched one of their largest strikes campaign against Sana'a, Yemeni capital. At least 20 airstrikes and over 70 projectiles reportedly hit Sana'a, allegedly some military sites and headquarters of Ansar Allah movement. Israeli Defense Ministry, Israel Katz, stated that whoever harms them will be harmed back. Yet another brag about killing everyone and everywhere. Israeli media claims that 50 plus Ansar Allah fighters were killed as a result of this strike. But yet again, this is claims from Israeli side. In reality, we don't know what happened, and I guess government in Yemen will share information about it later on. Maybe they already did, but during the preparations of this news update on Russian media outlets, I did not see reports about it. Maybe tomorrow. And there are also interesting statement from Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, who claimed that vessels of with all necessary equipment will link up with the Sumud flotilla to protect. And this flotilla is moving, as you know, dear friends, towards the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid and humanitarian mission. And this announcement from Spanish Prime Minister comes hours after Italy deployed its frigate to help their aid ships from this flotilla. So maybe in upcoming days, maybe even in next hours, I don't know exactly where this flotilla is located at this point, but they're gonna be closer now to shores of the Gaza Strip. So maybe today, maybe tomorrow, we might see a standoff between Israeli Navy and their warships or naval vessels of Spain and Italy. Let's see what is going to happen there. Also, dear friends, I think this is an interesting report that converted cargo ship turned special ops hub spotted near the Venezuela. Their MV Ocean Trader converted a roll-on, roll-off cargo ship now serving as a U.S. Special Operations Command Center and mothership under the military Sealifter Command was spotted today in the southern Caribbean near the U.S. Virgin Islands, roughly 400 miles from the Venezuela. You can see on your screen how this vessel looks like, and well, yet another indicator that most likely in relatively short time U.S. will attempt strikes, decapitation strikes on Venezuela, and the regime change there, potentially occupation of the country. Number of military assets of U.S. around Venezuela is increasing practically on daily basis. Also, I think interesting report is coming from South Korea at this time that allegedly North Korea is in the final stage of developing an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of striking the U.S. mainland. It confirmed such a capability would mark one of the most serious escalations in the Korean Peninsula security crisis in years. So maybe true, maybe not. Of course, we have no ways to confirm or deny this information, reject this information. But North Korea clearly demonstrated that North Korean scientists, engineers are well capable of developing high-tech rocketry. And why should anybody be surprised that they are working on ICBMs and are in a position to build one, right? So nevertheless, report is interesting one, of course, and I think Washington does pays attention to such a news. Washington, Pentagon, and all the other institutions there. A few news, dear friends, about some economical stuff, and that's about it for today's news segment. RIA Novosti is reporting that Bosch is planning a large-scale job cuts, according to media reports. So Bosch, the world's largest automotive components manufacturer, German one, right, plans to cut a five-digit number of jobs to reduce costs. The newspaper Handelsblatt reported, citing industry sources, auto parts supplied Bosch is facing massive layoffs. Industry sources say additional five-digit jobs cuts are planned, the publication reported, and well, there is no specifics, of course, there, but I guess dozen or two dozens of workers, maybe more, by the way, gonna be fired as a result of this job cuts. Yet another information confirming accelerating pace of the industrialization of Europe, and none of us should be surprised if we will find out sometime in the future that very same Bosch, very same company, after shutting down production in Europe, for example, move its manufacturing capabilities to the US. None of us should be surprised if this is going to happen, and most likely exactly that is going to happen. Also, dear friends, President of the Russian Federation today was participating in a forum about nuclear technology, nuclear energy, and so on, and he did made quite interesting statements. Let me give you some details. So President Vladimir Putin addressed the Global Atomic Forum at the VDNH, International Exhibition Center in Moscow here. He announced a revolutionary development in the field of peaceful nuclear energy and spoke about the future of the industry. RIA Novosti reports on the key announcements by the Russian president. So on the revolution in the nuclear sphere, Russian president stated that uranium resources are projected to be depleted by 2090, but this could happen even sooner. By 2030, the world's first closed fuel circle nuclear power system will be launched in the Tomsk region of the Russian Federation, which will address this issue, Russian president said. This is a truly revolutionary development by the Russian scientists and engineers. Nearly their entire volume, 95% of their spent fuel, will be reused in reactors. This mechanism will ultimately make it possible to almost completely solve the problem of radioactive waste accumulation, and just as importantly, resolve the issue of uranium availability. Well, this is of course revolutionary stuff. But when I see headlines, by the way, on this matter, I was thinking maybe Russia is planning to launch by 2030 a fusion reactor. That was the first thought that came to my mind. That would be truly revolution in energy field, by the way. And the whole world is waiting for that revolution to happen, right? There are experimental reactors in Russia, in China, in Europe, in US, that are working on a fusion reaction, sustained fusion reaction, which is science physics, by the way, right? When atoms are fused, current nuclear power plants are using fission technology when atoms being split, and as a result, energy is produced. This energy then used to heat the water, right? And then to the level of steam, by the way, and this steam then goes through pipes and pushes on turbines. Turbines generate electricity, and so on. But fusion reaction is a different, much more efficient, and much more safe. If we will reach sustainable fusion reaction, it's when two atoms are fused together, during which also a huge volume of energy is generated. right? And work is done. Work is done in this field. There is some success, one might argue, and but we are still some time away from actual, fusion reactors that will be used to produce electricity energy, right? And when I see this report, I mean, that was my first reaction. Maybe we're gonna have a fusion reaction by 2030. I was mistaken, but nevertheless, topic that Putin spoke about, this complete what how they call it, man, world's first. Okay, Alisa. Okay, thank you. Let me talk, please. Alisa is AI, by the way. Okay, let me talk, Alisa, please. By 2030, the world's first closed fuel cycle nuclear power system will be launched there. Okay, in the Tomsk region. Great deal, by the way. About the construction of the nuclear power plant, Russian president went to say that Russia will soon be mass producing floating nuclear power plants thanks to their safety and resistance to extremal influences. Nuclear power plant built using Russian designs are the most in demand in the world, which is factual. By the way, of course, Russia is a leading country when it comes to building nuclear reactors, nuclear power plants all over the world, not just on the ground, but also floating nuclear power plants. Moscow strictly fulfills all contractual obligations to its nuclear technology partners and is interested in long-term projects. Only Russia today has the expertise across the entire nuclear energy technology chain. Putin said the country helps its partners achieve developmental breakthroughs and rejects technological colonialism. Equal access to innovation in their peaceful use of nuclear energy will help ensure sustainable global development. First of all, for our country, their absolute priority is ensuring nuclear safety and the physical protection of the nuclear facilities and installations wherever these facilities are located. And yes, he went to say some more stuff, but in order to keep this new segment a little shorter, I will end on that. Interesting stuff there. And when it comes to nuclear technologies, by the way, Energy Secretary of US once again was forced to explain why US cannot get rid of Russian enriched uranium. Let me give you details on that. So United States is forced to continue purchasing enriched uranium from Russia due to shortage of its own capacity. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Reiter said today, on Thursday, and we have quote here, "We need it. We don't have the capacity to enrich enough uranium for our reactors that we are building right now," he said during his interview on CNN. According to him, Washington intends to increase its own production and will announce new enrichment projects in the coming weeks. We will see. I don't think US gonna be in a position to stop purchasing Russian uranium in years to come, at least, maybe even decades to come, right? Because demand on energy is constantly increasing all over the world, including in US itself, right? And as they are building new reactors, simultaneously they will need more and more enriched uranium, and I don't think they're gonna be in a they're gonna be able to simultaneously build their enrichment plants too. But anyways, I mean, let's see what is going to happen. But in any case, this information once again demonstrates how unfair U.S. Political class is in regards to other countries when Washington demands from others to stop buying Russian energy sources, and they themselves are continuing to purchase Russian energy source that enriched uranium is, isn't it? Anyways, RIA Novosti is also reporting that Russia's international reserves reached their new record So Russia's international reserves increased by 1.1% from September 12th to 19th in just a week, by the way, reaching a new record according to central bank report. Reserves amounted to 712.6 billion US dollars, increasing by 7.5 billion dollars over the week. Not bad, huh? 7.5 billion income in a week. That's quite something, isn't it? And this is just one source, by the way. This is just one fund that Russia has, international reserve currencies. It's a currency reserves, gold reserves, and so on. And Russia does have another funds too, where certain funds being accumulated, and their overall safety cushion, if I may say this way, of Russian Federation right now is about, I guess, $1 trillion in different assets, but nevertheless, right? Which is quite achievement, I would say, quite something. Very few countries in this world can claim that they have such a safety cushion. RT is also reporting, and I will end new segment on this interesting news, that YouTube plans to restore accounts banned over the COVID and the Biden election posts. YouTube will restore accounts it banned under the COVID and 2020 election misinformation rules. Lawyers for a parent company, Alphabet, told the U.S. House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday they acknowledged that their platform faced censorship pressure from the administration of former President Joe Biden. The Google-owned service with more than 2 billion users imposed sweeping restrictions during the pandemic, scrubbing content that contradicted the health authorities on vaccines transmission and their treatments. It also banned claims of widespread fraud in 2020 presidential election after Biden's victory was certified, and God knows how many thousand potentially accounts they banned, by the way. But it is good if they will unblock certain accounts, but they have to do so much more and so much better if they actually want to transform YouTube from a current state of heavy censorship still to actually free platform that I don't know how long or it will take, or if they will even be capable of doing this. After all, why my channel is in shadow ban? They did not block my channel, but why my channel is in shadow ban when not even members of our community are receiving notifications about updates, man? Already few members of our community are receiving notifications. I mean, how many times I have to see comment surprised from some surprised member of our community that, well, first time in 4 months or 5 months they have received notification about her update on my channel. How that is fair, man? So, well, YouTube has to do a lot more to at least improve its reputation somehow. I'm not asking for my channel to be monetized, right? I'm not asking for that, but why my channel is in shadow ban, for God's sake? All I do is report about news and share my personal opinion. That's it. Anyways, dear friends, I will end news segment on that. And dear friends, let's have a conversation now. I will join chatter. There was no super chat on Rumble, dear friends, during their stream to highlight. There was no donation. Also, otherwise, Anya, my wife, would send me a screenshot or tell me about it. So therefore, I will join community chat straight away. And just to remind you, dear friends, that if you want to donate, link to my PayPal and Boosty are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment on the both platforms, on YouTube and Rumble. And you can see there also link to my Patreon page. if you want to subscribe, become a Patreon of this project, and of course you can use your level of support there. By the way, it's a monthly subscription, and it starts from $5, and you can use your level of support. And you can use, of course, super chat while I'm online. You can use super chat on Rumble. It's called Rant there. And I see the friends question from Nikos. Let's read the question. I don't know if you want to give me your thoughts on what I said in the morning about the Russian government. All I know is that a nuclear war, which the West wants to happen, is not preferable. And there is continuation of the question. As an aspiring physicist, I can tell you that those who will be gone in the first 2 hours will be the lucky ones. Surviving it in the other scenario is not something a logical person leader wants for people. And there is a continuation also there. Chat is doing some stuff there. So as I said, true, I don't know what is the right answer. I mean, I read your comment. This morning under their first update today, Nikos. I did not react there straight away. I did read their comment itself, and you know what? I don't really think that I have any different opinion than you have. I think we are more or less on the same page on this issue. Of course, Russian leadership tries hard to avoid their unprecedented scale of escalation. I mean, they demonstrated it just too many times, right? They still continue to exercise restraint. So in this regard, Russian leadership is doing whatever they can to avoid all-out confrontation with the NATO. What else they can do, right? And I'm not criticizing them for that, not at all. I never did. Contrary, I was saying that maybe all of us are alive thanks to restraint that Russian leadership has demonstrated. But when I am critical in regards to certain steps that have been taken. For example, I shared today short clip of a statement from Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, who said openly, isn't it, that NATO and the EU has declared war on Russia, basically, and are engaged directly. So Lavrov knows what is going on, right? So when this is true, and when a couple of days ago Trump acted extremely irresponsibly and aggressively against Russia, made irresponsible statements and lie in many on many points. After that, to waste time meeting with Rubio, I think that was a mistake. I'm not saying that the Russian side should, make some strong statements necessarily and use some extremely aggressive language towards the hostile regimes. No, man. All I'm saying is very politely, very diplomatically, certain steps can be made that will send a clear enough message, right? For example, yesterday, Russian side could contact the U.S. Administration of Rubio and said that, yes, this meeting on the sidelines of UN was pre-planned, like 2 weeks ago, was already planned or something, but due to new realities, due to language or new approaches of the Trump, right? Maybe it would be better if we'll postpone this meeting, right? So you can use polite language. You will still be diplomatic, by the way, right? But if you will postpone the meeting, that will itself send a message, right? That, well, Moscow seems like Moscow is not happy with something here, right? That's what I meant. I was never. I mean, when I'm emotional, and sometimes I go emotional, right? And then I can say some crap, man. I'm as ordinary human being as anyone else, right? So when I'm emotional, I do say some crap as all of you, right? When we go angry, we say some stuff that we don't really mean, but that's what anger does, right? That's what emotions do. You say some crazy shit time to time. But when you are serious, then your comments are more irky, right? Or earthless. How should I say it? More ground based. Let me say it that way. And when that is the case, members of our community will agree with me. I'm always saying that, well, maybe and most likely we should be thankful to Russian leadership that we all are still alive, by the way, because if Russian president was someone like me, for example, and I mean, you see, I'm thinking self-critical, by the way, in ways that very few, if anybody, can criticize me, right? So if someone like me was a president, then well, that would be just too bad, isn't it? That would be too bad. People like me never have to be in a position of power because I don't have nerves necessary. I don't have many things, by the way, like experience needed to be president and many other nuances there. But all I'm saying is that if someone like me was in charge, maybe this world would look very differently. So therefore, I'm thankful actually for Russian leadership for restraining. Although same time, I hope, by the way, they know that West is and they know, of course, West is preparing next phase of escalation, and I hope we are ready as much as possible. But when it comes to top subject of nuclear war, by the way, I agree with you. It's going to be extinction level event, and as you said, people that will move to other world in instant will be lucky ones, because who will survive? They're gonna suffer unimaginably, because it's gonna be horrific. And the nuclear scientists have spoken about a world after nuclear exchange, and it's hell. And that's exactly what you are saying in your comment, Nikos. So. And there was the answer right now. There was right now super chat. So let me highlight. Let me highlight the answer. There was two super chats, one from Banzo Beans and another from D2 Cedre. Let me highlight these super chats, dear friends, and continue with the community chatter. So first super chat on Rumble is from Banzo Beans, our moderator on Rumble and YouTube. On YouTube, he is John Dickinson, by the way. So thank you very much, John, for your super chat and the dollar donation. Do these light switches behind you actually work? Are they just for a show? Okay, let's check. They do work. Thank you, John, for your super chat. Thank you. And another super chat, dear friends. Let me highlight another super chat on Rumble from Dito Cedre. Thank you very much for your super chat and $5 donation. Privet from Baltimore. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you very much for your super chat, for your donation and kind words. Thank you. And let's continue, dear friends. I'm scrolling now in the chat, and as always, I'm focused on capital Q or capital letters. This way, I do understand that most likely comment is directed to me. So, and my apologies, dear friends, if I miss your question unintentionally. I'm just scrolling, and when I spot question, I spot question. Sometimes some members of community are upset with me why you did not read my comment, dear friends. There is 100 or 200 or I don't know how many comments there, and in order to keep live stream shorter, and I'm just scrolling fast. Okay. Anya is telling me that her light is not doing well. Why? It was okay, I think. No? Anyways, let me highlight this comment from Bad Wolf. Trump is done with Ukraine and the EU completely. Well, this is opinion that is circulating, of course, but we will find out. We need some time. We need some time to have a better understanding what is behind his behavior. Let's say this way. But this is opinion that is definitely gaining popularity, that Trump is done with Europe, done with Ukraine, and he is kind of wants to distance itself and put all the responsibilities on Europe. I can see logic behind these statements, but same time, Trump continues to provide all the weapons, all the intelligence, and that means U.S. is still engaged in this proxy war, right? So let's scroll. Dear friends, also I forget to mention it in the beginning of this stream. When I change the programming, when I move a live stream towards the evening, during the announcements, I did say that from Monday to Thursday, I will have a morning by local time morning update, pre-recorded video, and the evening update live stream. That's exactly what I did. Today is a Thursday, tomorrow Friday. So when it comes to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think one live stream will do, because just to have little time for rest. I'm gonna be real here, right? It is exhausting to be engaged with the news and all that kind of stuff from 7 o'clock in the morning to these live streams sometimes end on 1 o'clock, right? So therefore, I think from Monday to Thursday, full programming, full-time work will do okay. And on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I will have on Fridays I will publish probably one or two clips from previous live stream, and then one news update on Saturday and Sunday, as it was always, by the way. One live stream somewhere between 12 and 3 p.m. Moscow time. And Sunday is going to be, as it was always the case, for a long time, Sunday is going to be big community chat and fundraising stream. So comment from Bad Wolf. Levan, you need to remember that the Trump 47 team will never say anything meaningful about or to Russia in public, only in closed door meetings, and in person everything else gets leaked. I can see logic behind this statement because of this all anti-Russian propaganda in the West. Of course, any move towards cooperation with Russia going to be a difficult one for any government in the West right now, because those governments, Western elites themselves, are now hostages of their own propaganda, right? Their own anti-Russian propaganda. They were demonizing Russia for how long, right? And now to cooperate with Russia, or at least to try to de-escalate, not gonna go down well with not just elites in the West, but people might also don't really understand, people that been indoctrinated in Russia hate, right? So I see logic behind your statement, Bad Wolf, but same time somehow if Washington is serious about pulling out US from this proxy war, and if Washington is serious about de-escalating with Russia, some actions are needed. And for now, when it comes to actual policies, what we see is that Trump's administration authorized transfer of thousands of cruise missiles to Kiev regime. And just last week that was, isn't it? Or week before, Trump also authorized transfer of new military aid package worth $500 million. And Rute, in short video, for example, that I showed you, in the beginning of the live stream, stated that $2 billion already been allocated for additional military aid packages for Kiev regime, and weapons are coming from US. So that's the policies, right? So based on factual information, we can just say it as it is, that US is engaged in this proxy war against Russia and still plays leading role, which is unfortunate, by the way, but that's how it is. Danny DeWall is commenting, a nice evening live. Don't worry about Trump, Levan. He is playing with them, getting the US money from their EU back. I mean, as I already said, Bad Wolf has similar take, as far as I can tell. So maybe you are correct, guys. It would be good if you are correct, and if my worries are just exaggerations, if my concerns are based on exaggerations or misunderstandings, because I don't want to see no escalation, by the way. Because if escalation happens, then there will be high chances that this, we might actually end up in full out war. Nuclear war, and that would be end of everything. So no normal human being would like to see that, isn't it? So we are living in crazy times. Situation is quite confusing, and I'm quite sure globally is not gonna stop, with or without US, but they're not gonna stop. I have no doubts about it. Also, Mickey is commenting, if they had moved quickly, Russia would have far bigger casualty figures and still face NATO at their end. I agree with you, Mickey, absolutely. There are reasons behind why Russia is deploying after 2022 Istanbul talks. Belarus and then talks in Istanbul failed. Russia changed the tactics, isn't it? And began adopting this mobile defense tactics for a reason, isn't it? Because it has become clear that their initial plan A, did not work. And what was the plan A? To basically move in fast, force Kiev regime to agree on negotiations, have a deal, and withdraw troops, right? That was the plan. But unfortunately, it did not work, and it did not work because US and UK get engaged, involved to derail peace talks, right? Istanbul talks, as they are known. That was taking place in March, April, and preliminary agreements were already reached, isn't it? So when West derailed this agreement, it has become clear that Plan B needs to be deployed, and Plan B was a very different stuff. Plan B was attrition war, attrition campaign, and Russia is still engaged in that campaign. And while this is the case, no one should expect arrow so-called offensives. And one of the reasons why we should not expect these arrow offensives is what you said, Miki. In that case, we will have like tremendously more casualties, and we don't want that, right? This attrition campaign at one point will force Kiev regime's forces to collapse all along the front line. And in that case, when that happens, yes, we might expect some large scale, maybe even arrow level, that level offensives, but not before we will see collapse of Kiev regime's forces, complete collapse. And experts constantly are speculating on the matter. Kiev regime's forces going to collapse. Military experts, rather. I have no freaking idea how militaries work, and therefore, my opinion is just my opinion. We should take it with a pinch of salt, obviously. And I always say that I'm not a military expert, so But military experts, constantly speculating that Kiev regime's forces will collapse in this time and that time, and not just here in Russia, by the way, but even on Kiev-controlled territory and even in the West, everywhere, right? But they did not collapse yet. Yes, they are experiencing significant difficulties with their manpower, first of all, and the rest, right? But one way or another, they are still fighting. So we have not yet seen this actual large-scale collapse of Kiev regime's military forces. And until this is the case, until this collapse will happen, Russia will continue with this mobile defense tactics and attrition campaign to minimize casualties, right? To constantly keep pressure on enemy and minimize casualties on our side. So I agree with you absolutely there. And what? Ah, really? There was a donation, dear friends, right now on a Boosty, and let me highlight, dear friends. Let me highlight, dear friends. Right now, donation on the Boosty from Alexander G. Thank you very much, Alexander, for your 808 ruble donation, which is a $10, dear friends. And comment from Alexander is, you are right about Putin's restraint, frustrating as it is. Thank you very much for your donation and the comment, Alexander. And I guess you also understand, my emotions time to time, but nevertheless, we are, I guess, on the same page. When we are serious, we do understand that this restraint maybe saved us all. I mean, it might be frustrating for us ordinary people because we just don't know all the information, right? We only know information that is available from open sources. And on our capabilities of analyzing this big volume of informations, while Putin and their other officials with the clearance, they have access to all information, right? They know better, right? And therefore, sometimes their decisions may not be easily understandable for us, yet again, because of the lack of the information. But nevertheless, if we are serious, I mean, in that case, we will acknowledge that thanks to this restraint of Putin, all of us might be alive. I mean, it is what it is. It might be frustrating sometimes. I mean, some decision-making process that we struggle to understand, but it keeps us alive. So it works, right? Thank you for sharing opinion, Alexander, and for your donation. Veterans of our community do see straight away, when I'm emotional, they know, oh, I'm going to say some stuff now. But when I'm not emotional, when I'm, calm, I just, I'm analyzing better situation, because emotions never good advisors, by the way, in anything, not just in analytics, but in anything. Emotions are never good advisors, man. I think in work or in any other stuff that you do. Let me continue, dear friends. Also, Alexander G is commenting, if Moldova is mobilizing and denying it, that is concerning. It is concerning, and the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service just a few days ago stated that some serious disturbances to be expected in regards to Moldova. And this weekend there are going to be parliamentary elections there, and something is being in preparations for sure, because I mean, there is too many indicators that if globalists will feel that they might lose control over the Chisinau or Chinsau, or how they say the name of the capital there. In Russian, it's Chisinau, by the way. If globalists will feel they are losing control, they will go ahead with all sorts of provocations. Remember what they did in Romania. So, I mean, what we are talking about, anything to be expected from the globalists. So, yes, it is concerning what's going on there. And without falsifications, by the way, of the elections, there is not a theoretical chance, in my personal opinion, that current regime, Western control regime of Maya Sandu and their party will win the majority. I don't think so, right? But yet again, they control regime, they control state institutions, Western puppets, and they will just do whatever they want. And if they will still lose, then they're going to go ahead with large-scale escalation. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, we need the fusion reactors for our space missions in the future. I mean, space too. Space too, of course, because fusion is I mean, it's a sound physics, right? It's a very efficient way of generating energy. Maybe sometime in the future, in like 500 years from now or 1,000 years from now, future scientists will master matter-antimatter collusion safely, right? And in that case, of course, that's the ultimate energy, matter-antimatter, right? It's 100% energy, by the way, because atoms of matter and antimatter completely annihilate each other, right? But that kind of technology, I mean, to do it, first to generate enough antimatter, which is possible and already being done, but to actually collect significant volumes of it, that's a whole different stuff that we are nowhere near right? But in 500 years time, who knows, man? Maybe scientists will master the technology, and that will be ultimate, of course, success for in terms of energy sector. But until then, fusion is a future for sure. Fusion is a future. Some members of community might say it, well, sometime in the future we will have a Dyson sphere around the sun and all the energy that we need, which might be true. Yes, I mean, maybe we one day will reach a type 2 civilization when we will have sort of a Dyson sphere around our sun. But it's a long time from now. First, we have to survive. By the way, right? First, we as a humanity have to survive. And based on all the flaws in our species, it is not the fact that we be able to, it is not fact that in 1,000 years from now we still be around. El Croc is commenting, asking, why would the Department of War recall hundreds of generals for the US next Tuesday, closer to their bunkers when Iran gets a nuke? I don't know why. I don't know. I don't think it's related to Iran. Could be. I don't know. As far as I can tell, this kind of action either never been done or maybe very, very long time ago, when hundreds of generals and admirals, even on the level of brigadier general, have been called in US, including from overseas. And well, we cannot know. It's a top secret, isn't it? That's why they're calling all these high-ranking officers in US. They have no idea also why they're being called. Topic of discussion will be disclosed in that area, wherever that meeting will take place, right? Pentagon, I guess, don't trust even its own messaging system that they have, right? So it's something of top classification, right? Something top secret. And based on the scale, I don't think it's about Iran or Venezuela. Maybe this topic is about, as I said in the news segment, maybe U.S. military is going to discuss reaction of U.S. Or role of U.S. in possible upcoming next phase of escalation against Russia by the West, and steps during and after. Maybe that is the topic of discussion. Because Venezuela alone, with all due respect, but Venezuela alone and Iran alone, I don't think would cause such a unprecedented scale of operation that Pentagon is engaged right now to call hundreds of generals and admirals from all over the world. So something bigger gonna be discussed. What that is, I don't know. We can only speculate, but maybe it's maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's connected with Venezuela or with Iran. I mean, who knows? But they targeted Iran already, and they did not did anything like that. So I don't know. We will see. And the Quest is commenting, it's house clearing. I guess this is exactly on the topic of this summon of their generals of all sorts. the Quest is commenting house clearing, and we don't need all these people if we are not going to war. And that's the question. Are you, that's the question that I have. Level of US's involvement in inevitable, in my personal opinion, next phase of escalation that global is gonna launch in short time. And their stronghold, main stronghold of globalists is of course Europe, right? So Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, how about countries use UN bills and bonds as a reserve currency by every country and are stored inside the respective nations? I don't know, Nidish, how that idea would work. UN has nothing, right? So any paper issued by UN will have a same meaning, even less, I guess, than UN itself does nowadays. So I don't think this will work. You need some assets behind their currency, some force or assets behind the currency. US dollar become world reserve currency because they force the entire world almost to sell their oil in dollars, right? And that's what allow US to basically strive and to live to spend like there is no tomorrow for decades and decades, right? That's why they have this 36 plus trillion dollars debt and increasing. And US dollar still is their main reserve currency because most of the goods worldwide still being sold in dollars, not just oil, but everything else, right? Although the process of de-dollarization is definitely underway and accelerating, but it will take quite a long time before dollar will actually slide to position of average reserve currency of this world. And there are other reserve currencies too. I mean, euro is also a reserve currency in some sense, right? British pound also, even Swiss franc, by the way, is in some ways a reserve currency, not a main one though. So I don't know about UN, but if BRICS will come up with a currency, that will work for sure. Oh, there was a donation, dear friends, on the PayPal right now. Thank you very much, Jamie, for a $10 donation on the PayPal right now. Thank you very much. And comment is keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy, for your support and attention. Jamie, yes. Thank you. And Quest is also commenting, Russia, China, and Iran are not our enemy. And I agree with you, Quest. I guess you are from US, and I said that many times before. That I personally, and many of us here in Russia, consider America First forces, or American patriots, by the way, our natural allies. Because if you are focused on your country and we are focused on ours, then we will find common ground. We will understand, we will realize that confrontation is not beneficial for none of us. Cooperation is, right? So therefore, American patriots are natural allies. And I guess American patriots think same way about people in other countries. We should not be enemies, man. We should not. Just because elites are playing some games, we should never ever consider each other to be their enemies, right? I'm talking about whole world, really, everybody. And we might have some concerns, by the way. I spoke about this topic a number of times before. In decade or two, China gonna become absolute dominant force economically, right, and gonna have unchallenged military capabilities, and to make sure that emerging multipolar world will work actually to benefit whole world, all of humanity, and to make sure that in 2030 or 50 years from now, whatever leadership China gonna have will not go rogue. We need actually cooperation between all the other countries in this world, right? I was considering, for example, triangle to be in the center of this checks and balances, triangle of Russia, China, US, to make sure that no one force in this world will go wrong in the future, right? So that interests of the all countries will be considered, right? Will be taken in account, because we don't need multilateralism no more, right? Enough of destruction that we see as a result of Western domination. We don't need no more dominant forces in this world. Let's cooperate. I think multipolarity is offering that opportunity, right? So Nidish Kumar had paid attention to this topic. Levan is struck at 36,000. Well, we was what is happening. What was happening, Nidish? YouTube was showing me numbers of our community like 35,900. And whenever we reach 990 something, suddenly some 20, 30 people in a single day were deciding to unsubscribe. And there was a drop. We reach this level, 35,990 something, at least 3 or 4 times, right? And recently, and that was the algorithm. I mean, once, okay, might happen, but twice, 3, 4 times, same stuff. No, it's algorithm is doing some crap, right? In reality, I don't even know how big our community is. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't believe numbers that YouTube is showing me, right? But then what happened is that one of the short clips, from live stream, managed, thanks to you, dear friends, thanks to your likes and comments, did manage to somehow bypass obstacles that algorithm creates, reached a wider audience, gained some over 10,000 views, and as a result of that, more people see my content, subscribed, and then another video also managed to bypass algorithm, like, and eventually we reached 36,000, and now it's 36,100 plus. So you see, I mean, algorithm does its stuff, but nevertheless, if there is likes and comments, if community is helping the channel to deal with the algorithm, then this can be done. We can overcome algorithm stuff. Well, it's sad to hear that according to Quester, most of Americans are poor these days. It's a struggle. It's a daily struggle for many people for bread and butter, and it's like 90s. It feels for many like 90s of Russia in America for the last 15 years. Sad to hear, but this definitely not comes as a surprise, because on internet we have seen so many videos, isn't it? Especially from a younger generation that are saying that their fathers in 70s, for example, were able to, with the work that they have, with the wage that they have, were able to buy house to buy car, to provide families, to take families on vacations, summertime, wintertime. And now younger generation is struggling to even have a mortgage. Nothing to be said about rest, right? So it is sad. It is sad, and I have no reason to doubt information that is coming from ordinary people like us, right? It is unfortunate, but yeah. I mean, maybe it's not like 90s exactly, because 90s here in former Soviet Union was freaking hell, man. I don't know how we survived. I mean, I was in Georgia during the 90s, right? I was a teenager at that point. And it was, I mean, Georgia experienced civil wars and stuff, and many other republics, by the way, of Soviet Union. And I mean, it was a hard times, right? It was a hard times, man. 90s, terrible. So, I mean, it is too bad that you think situation in US is like 90s was. It's sad to hear that. Nidish Kumar is also commenting. Levan, what do you think about Indonesia president offer of 20,000 troops in Gaza, and every nation recognizing both Palestine and Israel as nations for a peaceful existence? Well, if I don't think this will work. I mean, idea itself can be one that some governments will consider as a potential direction to move forward, but I don't think this will work. Let's be real here. To achieve peace, by the way, modern Israel, which turned into absolute rogue state, has to be demilitarized and denazified. It's not just the regime itself, but people in Israel, very many people in Israel, have to undergo some programs to get rid of this ideology that they have when they consider themselves to be some God-chosen people, and the rest to be some subhumans or not even humans whatsoever, right? Until those people are still thinking that way, you cannot influence their behavior. So those people have to undergo some denazification program. I call it a denazification program, or the ideologization program, right? To begin acknowledging that they were committing horrors, right? Atrocities, and to feel the pain of the people that they harm. And only in that way they be able to find their courage in themselves to say sorry, right? And to be able to live in peace with others, right? Experts in the field will explain this better than I do, but denazification program was actively used in after Second World War in Germany, right? And it worked, by the way. It worked. So, I mean, I don't think Israel can be stopped any other way. It's only demilitarization and denazification. Did you see Trump? Quest is asking, did you see Trump at the United Nations today? Today or day before yesterday? I mean, when he was making speech, yes, I did spoke about his speech, and when he then met with Zelensky and statements, but that was the day before yesterday, isn't it? Maybe he was in a UN today too. I just don't know about it. But he's back in Washington, no? He had a meeting with the Turkish president today, with Erdogan, and I think it was in the Oval Office. It was in Washington. I mean, Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but based on videos that I see, it looked like that meeting took place in White House, in Oval Office. I don't know. Although, by the way, I mean, Washington is not far away from New York, right? Trump can take a plane or even helicopter and just fly in few hours to to New York. So I have not seen. After this live stream, I will check news, and for tomorrow's update, I will have information about it. And dear friends, I think it's more than 2 hours now. Our live stream is on. I see a question from Danny Deval, or comment rather. Since the gold standard was lifted 70 years ago, inflation was born. Now, young people will pay off their unlimited debt created by their previous generations. It's a spiral to poverty. I agree with you, Danny. I agree with you. I think our system is broken. I think system is broken, and something has to be done about it because, I mean, it's just too obvious, right? It's not even an argument that standard of life itself is becoming more expensive. Inflation is destroying income of the people, right? And when it comes to income itself, I mean, in the numbers, it might be much more than people had, like even 10 times more than people had in 70s and 80s. But in 70s, people were actually able to have a high standard of life, and now people with 10 times more money are struggling. I mean, so that itself, maybe not 10 times more, but with more money are struggling. So that says it all, isn't it? System is broken and something has to be done about it. And I mean, I don't know, experts should think what is the way to deal with the situation. Maybe to go back to gold standard. But yet again, I'm not an expert in finances, so it's difficult for me to come up with ideas about it. Thank you for your comment. And right now there was right now Viper gifted their subscription. Thank you very much, Viper, subscription as a premium member. And thank you very much, Viper. Let me highlight this. So yes, Viper gifted their one subscription to Levangudadze Opinion. So we have one more premium subscriber on Rumble. Thank you very much, Viper, for your support and attention. Grateful. Thank you. And I see a question from Sandra Savia. Do you agree that the USA has been betrayed by those who only care about money and have sold themselves out? People of US has been betrayed, yes, by corrupt elements, not just among US elites, but also among Western elites in general. They used and abused US big time, of course. Can be no doubts about it. Absolutely. People of US has been portrayed by their own elites and elites of so-called allies, right? Because take a look at the history. By certain multinational or even Europe or US-based groups, due to their control and influence, I mean, US was abused, isn't it? And used as an enforcer all over the world. all these wars that US was engaged in, I mean, none of them was in interest of the US people, right? Those wars served in the interests of these influential groups from Europe or from no, when it comes to Europe, it's a globalist, right? When it comes to US, it's neocons that are linked to military-industrial complex, obviously, and the intelligence community and so on, that are benefiting tremendously with all these wars, and also Zionists, right? I mean, influence of Zionists cannot be underestimated. All these Middle Eastern forever wars was done as a result of this influence of Zionists, right? There was no interest of the US people in those wars, isn't it? Whatsoever. So and also Sandra is commenting, asking, I think that Trump is being poisoned. He has undergone significant physical changes. Do you think that's possible? Well, I don't know. I mean, on several occasions, I did notice and even spoke about in my programs that Trump was not as energetic as we have seen him just a month ago or 2 months ago, right? Or during the election campaigns. But he's an elderly man, right? And sometimes something might happen, and age is age, right? So I mean, he should be protected by security service, right? So no one should be able to poison him. Although, who knows? Yet again, I mean, we are living in a crazy world, so therefore, anything is possible. But I mean, to poison Trump, that means someone has to have enough influence to force security service to look aside. And who has such influence? And why would they poison Trump if they have such access or influence and not take him out straight away? Then I don't know. I mean, I just have no opinion. I didn't really think about it, but I just don't know. But when it comes to possibilities in these crazy times, anything is possible. And dear friends, if I may, I will end the live stream now, dear friends. Thank you all for your attention and for your support. Have a wonderful day, dear friends, and see you tomorrow. Bye for now.